This is another great birth story episode brought to you by Lansano. Welcome to the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I'm Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a board-certified OBGYN who's been in practice for nearly 15 years. I've had the privilege of helping over 1,000 babies into this world, and I'm here to help you be calm, confident, and empowered to have a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Check out the full disclaimer at drnicolerankins.com/disclaimer. Now let's get to it. Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is episode number 159. I am so glad that you're spending a bit of your time with me today. So in today's episode of the podcast, we have a lovely birth story episode with Sydney. Sydney is 24 years old and she had her son when she was 19. She is also the bonus mama to a sassy 6-year-old daughter. Now, even though Sydney's story is from a few years ago, there is still a lot to learn from it. Sydney had her baby a little early at 36 weeks, and you will hear about how after a slower start, things went super fast. She's just an example of how unpredictable labor can be. And things actually went so fast that it shocked her mother and caused her mother to faint at the hospital. Don't worry, she's okay. Sydney also had her baby at a young age, and although it forced her to step up, her partner at the time didn't necessarily do the same, and she also found out that some of her friends weren't necessarily her true friends after she had a baby. But now Sydney is getting ready to get married. She's in school. She's happy. She's doing well. She has a great relationship with her child's father. And you really do become a new person after you have a baby. And Sydney was really intentional about becoming a better version of herself, which is amazing and which is why I think you will love this story. Now, one of the things you're going to hear Sydney talk about is how she wishes she would have accepted more help postpartum. Well, let me tell you about something that you will definitely want to use to help you postpartum, and that is the postpartum recovery products from this episode's sponsor, Lansano. Their birth prep and recovery postpartum care line has some amazing products, including an upside down postpartum wash bottle. It is much better than the one you get at the hospital. These fantastic hot and cold therapy packs, I love these. They can get hot in the microwave or cold in the freezer, and they change colors whether or not they're hot or cold. They're also reusable. They have postpartum herbal sprays and more. I have actually put my hands on all of these products and they really are fantastic. I'm not going to recommend anything to you that I really don't believe in myself. So that's why I'm really excited to share those products with you today. And you can learn more about the entire birth prep and recovery postpartum line at lansano.com/AAPB. That is Lansano, LANSANOH.com/AAPB. All right, let's get into the conversation with Sydney. Thank you so much, Sydney, for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I am excited to have you share your birth story.
Me too. I'm really excited.
All right. So why don't we start off by having you tell us a bit about yourself and your family?
Okay. I am 25. I had my son when I was 19. He was healthy, happy. It was pretty easy. I now have a stepdaughter who's 6. And so we're kind of just blending our family. I'm getting married in April, so
it's
all exciting.
Yeah. So your birth story then is a little bit older. I'm curious what led you to want to share it.
I just feel like I had a really crazy birth experience. I've never heard of anybody having anything near what I had. So I just kind of thought, that'd be kind of cool to share with people, because every time I tell my story, they're like, oh, well, that's really interesting, like to know that how that happened to you.
Right. I love it. Well, let's get into it. So why don't we start off first by you telling us, what was your pregnancy and prenatal care like?
I feel like it was really easy. I didn't have very much morning sickness. I was sick in the beginning, like from 6 to 10 weeks maybe, but it was only when I ate, or if I ate something like yogurt, I couldn't keep yogurt down, or if I got really hungry, like I could tell when I needed to eat. But other than that, I was fine. It didn't start getting really rough until I was about 6 months, and I got so swollen. Like, I couldn't wear shoes. I had to wear slippers or flip-flops. None of my clothes fit. My face was all puffy. I had the sausage fingers. Like, it was awful.
Gotcha. And then did your doctor, were they just like, oh, this is just sort of how pregnancy goes?
Yeah, they didn't really, they never said anything. My blood pressure was always good at my appointments. They weren't concerned about it. My son's dad, his sister was a nurse, and she kept telling me, like, you're super swollen. Like, are they not saying anything about it? Are they not doing anything? I said, no, they're saying everything's fine, and it's just, I'm just retaining water. So
Gotcha. And were you seeing a doctor or a midwife?
I was seeing a doctor.
Okay.
I saw 6 different doctors within the practice.
Did you rotate through all of them?
Yeah. So the way they did it was they rotated so that if for some reason I went into labor and my normal doctor wasn't on call, I would know everybody, which I really liked. That way I felt comfortable no matter who was there. And it wasn't scary. It wasn't, oh my gosh, my doctor's not on call. I can't have my doctor not deliver my baby. Like,
sure.
So it made it a little bit easier knowing that I knew all the doctors.
Gotcha. And getting back to the yogurt, it made me think, like, when I was pregnant, it's weird how certain things will just like trigger you and you don't even understand it. Like, I couldn't eat Cheerios. They would make me throw up immediately. So,
like, I wanted yogurt so bad and smoothies, and every time I ate them, it was, I vomited every time, even though I wanted them so bad.
Oh, goodness. And did you feel good about the care you received during your pregnancy?
Yeah, like everything was really good. They gave me additional ultrasound pictures. Like, they turned on the 3D sonogram, and I got a couple pictures of him like that, even though he didn't want to cooperate. So his hands were in front of his face. But I feel like everybody was always super nice. They were always very helpful. Any questions I had, they could answer them.
Nice.
So it was a good experience. I loved my hospital that I delivered at. Like, I'll have all of my kids there, even though they're 30 minutes away now.
Right. Well, that's great. And do you feel like, because you were fairly young, do you feel like you were treated a certain way because you were young?
I don't think so. I think they were a little more helpful because I was so young. Like, my parents had me when I was young, and they were there with me the whole time. But I felt like they were just more nurturing almost because I was young, and they were really, once I did finally have him, they were helpful. They showed me anything I needed to know. They were right there if I needed them, So I felt like they almost were a little more nurturing than because I was so young.
Gotcha. And then did you feel scared? I mean, I couldn't imagine being pregnant at 19. Were you scared? Were you worried?
At first I was scared, but I knew my family would be accepting, and they, even though they were a little upset at first, they were just as excited as I was. And now he's spoiled rotten, and I can't imagine not having him. I feel like he almost made me kind of get my life together a little bit, because I was like that hippie child that I was just gonna roam the world, and I had no clue what I was going to do. And after I had him, it just kind of all clicked. And like, my family now, they're like, we never thought you would be the one to like have a good job and have your life together. And like, you were going to be this hippie child that was going to go all over, and we never knew where you were going to be.
Right. And now here you are.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. And what part of the country are you in?
I am in Missouri.
Okay. All right. You are friends with Kelly, is that right?
Yes. She's my neighbor.
Love it. Y'all, Kelly is my like superstar, amazing assistant who keeps me in line. So.
Hey, she keeps me in mind sometime too. Like, I'd probably forget a lot of things if I wasn't like, Kelly, to remind me.
Right. She is lovely. I love
Yes.
her dearly. All right. So let's get into, what did you do to prepare for your birth, if anything?
I feel like I thought I was so prepared leading up until when it actually happened. So the night I went into labor, my mom and my grandma were actually at my apartment. Like, we were getting the last of his room done. My grandma had washed like 6 tubs of his clothes and brought them all over, and I was getting his room ready, and I was sitting on the closet floor, and I just remember like starting to get the contractions, and I thought, oh no, like it's just Braxton Hicks, it's fine, like everything's fine. Well, then it was like a couple hours later, and they were becoming stronger and more frequent, so I started timing them. And I was sitting on the couch, and I remember telling his dad, we've got to go to the hospital. Like, they're getting closer and closer. Like, they're every 2 minutes. Like, we got to go to the hospital. And he was playing video games, and he just kind of stopped and stood there and was pacing up and down the stairs. And our dog was just sitting there looking at him like, what are you going to do? Like, what is going on? Like, he could tell something was wrong.
Right.
And as soon as I got to the hospital, all I remember telling my dad was, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not pushing this baby out. Like, I'm not doing it. And my dad just looked at me and goes, yes, you are. Like, it's a little late for that.
Right. Like,
you're going to do it.
Like, this is going to happen.
You don't have a choice.
Yes. Now, had you read books or taken a childbirth education class or anything?
I had taken some classes through the hospital that they offered, you know, like the Lamaze coaching and things like that. And then I watched a couple birth story videos and like YouTube videos, but I don't think anything ever really like could fully prepare you because everybody's different and every situation's different. So 100%. I don't think anything could have ever like fully prepared me. Like, even if I have when I have my next one, I don't think I'll be as prepared. Like, because, you know, things happen and you think, oh yeah, you're so prepared, but you're not.
Right. So, was there anything that you wanted for your birth that you were like really wanting to have for your experience?
I don't think I really had any expectations for how it was going to go or anything that I wanted. We did decide that we wanted it to just be us two in the room. We wanted that moment with our son, like the first time we saw him. We wanted a little bit of time by ourselves. I did want this, like, I wanted our family to come in separately, like have our parents and then kind of go down the line, and that didn't happen. And they all just kind of like rushed in and like bombarded me a little bit. So I was a little overwhelmed with that.
Gotcha.
But other than that, I didn't have any like real expectation I didn't want a C-section at first. So I was kind of nervous about that. Like, I wanted to try the all natural. And then as soon as I was so ready for my epidural. I was like, forget this. I'm not, no way. That's out the window. I went through 12 hours without anything, no Tylenol, no nothing, because they were checking me for preeclampsia and I wasn't dilating fast enough. So I was at a 2 for 12 hours. Well,
let's back up then. So that night then when you started having the contractions, you ended up going to the hospital? How far along were you?
Yeah. So I was 36 weeks.
Okay.
I went in at 10 o'clock that Wednesday night and I was super swollen. I was only at a 2. Okay. And I was a type 2. Like, I wasn't dilating at all. And I was sitting in there in so much pain. And I remember them telling my mom, well, if we weren't checking her for preeclampsia, we would just send her home with muscle relaxers and tell her to come back. And my mom looked at them just like a ghost almost, like, what do you want her to do? Like, come back when he's falling out? Like, when does she come back? And my mom was like, she's not leaving the hospital without having this baby. Like, you're not sending her home. And they're like, well, no, we're going to keep her for a while and monitor her. And she's like, I had to collect all of my urine because they were checking me for preeclampsia because I was so swollen and my blood pressure was going up with every contraction.
Do you remember how high your blood pressure was?
It was like 135/88 or 89. It wasn't up super high. Really the only reason they had kept me was because I was so swollen.
But was the swelling any worse than it had been? Because I didn't
think so. I felt like I was just as swollen as I was at 6 months. I mean,
Right.
it was more in my ankles and my toes and my legs than anything. My hands and my face were puffy. Like, you could obviously tell that I was swollen. But I was sitting in the bed, and I remember my mom just looking at me going, "You don't even look like you're 9 months pregnant. Like, you don't look like you're 36 weeks. Like, your belly's so little." Like, I just had this little
Right.
bump. Like, it wasn't in my stomach at all. It was
Right.
all in
Right.
my face and my legs.
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
then what happened after that? You said you sat for a long time.
Yeah, I sat for it was about 12 hours or a little over 12 hours laying
And
there
how frequently were you having contractions?
every 2 minutes.
Okay.
I was up for 12 hours. Like, I couldn't sleep because I was in so much pain. They couldn't give me any Tylenol or anything. And then
Why
finally,
not?
they finally did at like 9 o'clock the next morning. They got the okay to go ahead and give me Tylenol until the doctor could come in and check me, I guess. But they wouldn't give me anything for it. So I was literally just laying there and having contractions every two minutes for 12 hours. And then finally at around 10 o'clock that next morning, the doctor came in, and I was at a tight enough 3 that she went ahead and broke my water. And
Did they say that you had preeclampsia?
I
Or
did
were
not,
they
I
saying
didn't end
like,
up having it. I was
okay,
just, I don't know. They just said I just held water and everything was fine. My blood pressure was, after I had gotten the pain under control, my blood pressure had went back down.
gotcha.
So I wasn't preeclamptic, but I finally got the epidural after about 30 minutes into them breaking my water. They finally gave me the epidural, and I was able to rest and kind of sleep for several hours.
Okay. And let me back up and say, usually we don't do a lot at 36 weeks to intervene.
Yeah.
So was it did they say like, we know you're a little bit early, but it looks like you're in labor, so that's why we're breaking your water now? Or was there any conversation around
Yeah,
that?
they were worried that my blood pressure would go back up, and he had a strong heartbeat. He was healthy. They had no worries about him not being okay at 36 weeks. So they were fine with me with breaking my water, and just kind of, they were like, obviously, like, you're in active labor, like, he's coming. So they finally were like, well, we're going to break your water and get him out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So then they broke your water, you got an epidural, and you were finally able to get some rest.
Yeah. So I finally was able to rest. They did the peanut ball, and I would switch sides every once in a while and was able to sleep for a while. And then they would come in and check me every hour. So I started progressing. I was at a 6. And
About what time was that? Do you remember?
This was about 4 in the afternoon. So
Okay.
this is Thursday. The next day, it was about 4 in the afternoon. My mom and my grandma were with me the whole time. My son's dad was trying to sleep, and he had actually, they came in and checked me, and I was at a 6. And so he was like, okay, well, I'm going to go get something to eat. I'm going to go grab some food. I'm starving. I'm going to go eat really quick. And he went to the gift shop and got some, little things just because he was bored. And
Right.
my grandma and her best friend were in the room with me, and my mom had gone outside to call my dad and update him, because him and my sister were actually at day at the K, and they were worried that they were going to miss something. So they didn't want to miss both. And my mom was like, oh no, it's her first baby. Like, she'll be here for a while. Like, you guys can go, you'll have plenty of time.
Right.
And my brother was at school. And so him and his girlfriend had just gotten there, and I started feeling a ton of pressure, and like I needed to push. And so I was laying there, and she had just came in and checked me and turned up my epidural. And I was at a 6, and she was like, okay, like, you should start to go numb again here soon. Like, you shouldn't feel anything. Well, it wasn't going away. I felt like I needed to push. And so I looked at my grandma and her best friend, and I said, can you go get her? Like, something's not right. Like, I feel like I need to push. Like, I'm going to push him out. And they were like, they started to freak out. They were like, what? What do you mean? Like, she just checked you, like, not even 2 minutes ago, and you were at a 6. So she came back in the room, and she was like, okay, well, I'll check you again. Crazier things can happen. I just checked you a few minutes ago, and you were at a 6. Well, she checked me, and I was at a 9.5, ready to go.
Right.
And so I just remember laying there, and I mean, it was within 5 minutes. Like, I went from a 6 to a 9.5 in 5 minutes. And I just remember them they started to get everything ready because she was like, oh yeah, like you gotta go. Like you're ready to push. We're going to get you ready. So they kicked my mom and her best friend out. And all I remember was my grandma called my mom because she was downstairs outside. And she says, Megan, Sydney's having the baby. And my mom's like, I know that. Like, we've been here since 10 o'clock last night. I know she's having the baby. And she goes, no, like right now. Like, she's getting ready to have him now. And so my mom passed out outside. So
I'm sorry, wait. Did you say she passed out?
She fainted outside. Yeah. Like, she got queasy and fainted outside in the lobby. So they got her under control and brought her up to the waiting room, and she called my dad. They had walked in the door literally right as I had delivered him. I only pushed for about 20 minutes. He was healthy, 5 pounds, 6 ounce little bird. He looked like a little bird.
Aww.
And I just felt like an instant relief. Like as soon as I pushed him out, his head came out, all the other pain went away. Like, I had no pain, no nothing. I dropped all my water weight almost instantly, and he was perfectly healthy.
Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
And do you feel like you had good support with the nurses and the doctor who was there with you at the hospital?
Yeah, they were very good. I kept, I was so mean. Like, I was one of those yelling and screaming, and I was so mean. I think I told the nurse that if she didn't hurry up, I was just going to push him out. And they were like, no, like, don't push him out. It's okay. I was just yelling, like, telling them to hurry up because I was going to push him out.
Right.
But they were very good about being able to coach me and, telling me what to do and how to keep him from going back up. And they were very supportive and very helpful. And they were great the whole time I was there. Even though I was so mean to them.
You probably weren't as bad as you think. We understand that when
they
people...
were like, we're used to it. Like, we get people telling us to shut up and everything all the time. Yeah. Like, we're used to it.
When people are in pain, especially, we are totally used to it. So.
Yeah.
So then afterwards, you said, like, you had a rush of family come, like, right away?
Yeah, they were all in the waiting room. So my whole family, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my brother, my sister, all of his family. He had a really big family. He had 3 older siblings I think my son was grandkid number 9 or 10. So his nieces and nephews were all up there. And I wanted to do it in stages. I wanted our parents and then grandparents and then aunts and uncles and then all the cousins, everybody else could come in. And it didn't happen that way. Everybody just kind of came in at once. So I had literally just delivered him, and maybe they made us wait 20 minutes before they let anybody come back. And as soon as they let everybody just when you first have a baby, it's I wanted that moment. I wanted that time, and everybody was just my room was full of people. And I felt like it was that way the entire time. I constantly had somebody in my room, no matter who it was, whether it was my family or his friends or somebody was always there at all times. And I feel like I kind of just wanted that moment, even a couple hours of just us. Or just me and him, with our son, and it just didn't happen that way. But I still wouldn't change it, because I feel like that's important for everybody. And I mean, I definitely will do things differently with my next baby, especially because I do have 2 other kids now that are going to be involved. So I think it'll be a little bit more understanding of, hey, I want that moment of just us and our 2 kids with the new baby. And that's it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, these days, I mean, for the foreseeable future, people won't be allowed to come into the hospital because of COVID, honestly. But even when you get home, you can still sort of set some parameters around, yeah. So what was the postpartum period like for you?
I was very attached to him. I didn't want anybody's help. I didn't want anybody doing anything. I wanted to do it all. And
interesting.
I thought everybody was really worried, thinking that, because I was very selfish. If I wanted to go to bed, I didn't care who was there. I was going to bed. I didn't care. I didn't care if I had a house full of people or friends over or anything. I was going to bed when I was ready to go to bed. So my mom was like, Sydney, like, you're really selfish. Like, I don't know how, like, I'm kind of worried, like, how you're going to do with this. But it was almost the complete opposite. Like, I didn't want anybody's help. I didn't want my mom's, because they obviously offered to stay with me. They offered for me to stay there for the first couple weeks just to get used to things and get in a routine. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm staying in my own house, my own bed. I want to do it all.
Right.
And I think he was like a week and a half old, and like, I was so sleep deprived because I was up with him all day. His dad worked nights at the time, and he had gone back to work, and I was just completely sleep deprived. Like, I hadn't slept in a week and a half. I was miserable. And so my mom finally, like, forced me to take the help almost. And I remember falling asleep in the chair at my grandparents' in their basement, and my mom was like, don't wake up. I'm going to get up with him. I'll feed him. Like, I will help you. I will do it. But I still couldn't let her. Like, I still woke up and I still was like trying to take care of him, even though she was telling me to sleep. And she finally was like, okay, well, clearly, like, you're not going to let me. So at least just let me, like, hold him or something. And then you can, like, at least, like, even though you're awake, you're still seeing everything I'm doing. And so it was just like the complete opposite. And I had a little bit of postpartum depression just because I was 19, I was a young mom, and my whole world had just changed, and I was now responsible for a little person, and just, I had lost a lot of my friends and my body, and like, you think, oh, your friends are going to stick around, like, they're going to be there, you're going to be able to do the things you did before, but you can't. And so I got really overwhelmed at first, but I wouldn't change any of it.
And I should ask, were you breastfeeding at all?
I tried to breastfeed, and then I didn't produce enough milk, and so I dried up really fast. So I ended up just doing formula. And it was a little bit easier for us because when I did go back to work, I had family, I had his parents helping me watch him. I had my mom watching him, and it was just easier for us to do formula.
100%. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
As long as he was fed and happy, I didn't really care. That's all I wanted was him to be healthy and happy and fed.
Yeah. At what point did you go back to work?
He was 3 weeks old when I went back to work.
I'm sorry. Did you just say 3 weeks old?
Yeah. So I actually worked with his grandma at the time at our apartment complex, in their resource center with a bunch of kids. So I was able to, like, it was right across the street from my house. I was able to take him with me. I was able to be there. Half the time I would go in before the kids got out of school and help her with a couple little things, and then she would tell me to go home. So I would just go home. So I got really lucky that I was able to have him there with me still, but still making money at the same time. Because half the time I was able to just go home.
Okay. So I'm glad. So you weren't going back to a typical job then?
No. Yeah. It wasn't a typical, like, it was basically, it was a resource center for the kids that lived at the apartment, and it was the summertime, so we were getting ready for the summer program, and the pool was open, so I was able to sit at the pool with him, and, like, we put him in the pool, and we went swimming, and I could just sit up there and watch movies with him all day. And half the time I'd do a couple things for a couple hours, and then she would tell me to go home, and I would just go walk across the street to my house. So it wasn't like a typical going back to work full time, like, this is what I'm doing. No.
Okay. And I want to circle back to the adjustments of, like, you thought your friends were going to be there and things like that. How did you navigate that?
I learned who my true friends were, because the few that I do have, or that I had at that time, they were the only ones that stuck around. They were the only ones that didn't care if I had a baby. They love him just as much as I do. They helped me. But there was only, like, I had, 20, 30 friends before, where now I only had like 3 or 4. And it made me really open my eyes and see like who I was hanging out with wasn't really there. And they weren't my true friends anyways, because if they were, they would have been there the whole time and not just before I was a mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And how long do you feel like it was before you kind of adjusted to your new life?
I feel like I adjusted pretty quickly. I adjusted a lot quicker than his dad did. You know, I was taking care of us. I was taking care of the baby. I was going to school. I was working. Like, I was supporting us. And I felt like he made me do better. He made me get my life together. He made me be that person that he needed. And his dad didn't adjust to that at all. Like, his dad was still 20 years old and barely, I mean, he was like, he couldn't even leave his mom long enough to even be a parent. Like, so I felt like I adjusted a lot better than he did. And so it was just kind of crazy to see, like, because you think that like, they tell you, oh, it'll change everybody. It changes everybody. But it doesn't. It'll, you know, like sometimes, like in my situation, I was the only one that changed and was affected, and his dad stayed the same. So
Gotcha. And then I guess if I have a final sort of weird question. A lot of times, or sometimes I see folks have children when they're young, and then they turn around and have another child fairly quickly, even though the experience is hard the first time. Were you like, I'm getting on birth control, or I'm not going to let this happen?
Yes, I got on birth control right away, right at my 6-week appointment. I got right back on it. I was not having another one. I was not. No, I was not. I was like, no, I need to, like, I wanted to finish school. I wanted to, his dad and I obviously did not stay together. So I felt like I had to do better for him and I before I even thought about bringing another baby into the world. Like, I wanted to finish school. I wanted to be with somebody that was going to love both of us and build a life and do it right the second time, I guess. Yeah, you could say.
Yeah. Gotcha. That makes complete sense. Yeah. So then, as we wrap up, is there anything that we missed that you want to share? And then I'll ask you what is your favorite piece of advice that you like to give to folks?
It's just kind of crazy. Like, now, like, my son went from being an only child, a spoiled rotten, you know, he was my first and my family's first, just like I was. And so he was spoiled rotten. And it's just crazy to see how well he has adjusted to like now having my stepdaughter who's 6 and older than him. And his dad is actually now he is married and they have triplets and a newborn under the age of 1. Yeah. So it's just like, I was kind of worried at first, like, oh, like, he's not going to adjust very well. Like, he's so used to being alone, especially over at his dad's, because he was the only baby in the house. And he went from having all of the attention to having triplets, and then the triplets and the new baby are 13 months apart. So it's like he went from having no siblings to having 5 all within like a short time. But he adjusted so well, and he loves his he calls them his babies. And he loves my stepdaughter, and he's ready for me to have more. And I'm like, no, dude, like, I got to get through a wedding. I'm graduating in June. Like, let's slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's excited. He's so sweet and so smart. And I just enrolled him in kindergarten yesterday and was crying in my car on my way home because I just enrolled him in kindergarten.
Aw, I love it. So then what is your favorite piece of advice that you will tell other folks as they get ready for their birth?
Take the help.
You said that so fast. I couldn't even get it out before you realized.
If somebody's offering to give the baby a bath or wake up in the middle of the night and help you and feed them, take the help. Let them clean your house. I felt like I had to do it all. I felt like I had to be the one to take care of him while taking care of my house. I didn't want anybody's help. I was stubborn, and I should have let them help a lot more than I did. But if they're offering to like clean or cook you dinner or something, take the help.
Just
like,
take it. Just take it.
Yeah,
Yes.
just take the help. You'll want the help.
Love it. Excellent advice. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Sydney,
Yeah.
for agreeing to come onto the podcast and share your story. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Wasn't that a great conversation? I really enjoyed chatting with Sydney and hearing about her birth story. Now, after every episode, when I have a guest on, I do something called Dr. Nicole's Notes, where I talk about my top 3 or 4 takeaways from the episode. Here are my Dr. Nicole's notes from my conversation with Sydney. So one, I just want to say a couple things about labor in general. Okay. So number one, obviously I don't know her whole history and what was going on during her labor, so I'm not like second guessing what her doctors did. But in general, we don't break someone's water at 3 centimeters if they're 36 weeks. We typically don't tip the scales either way at 36 weeks to like stop labor or progress labor. So that's not something that is pretty typical to do something like break anybody's water at 36 weeks. Second thing about labor is that she mentioned getting Tylenol for pain during labor. I'm going to be honest, that's probably not going to do a whole lot of much or nothing to help with pain during labor. Tylenol is great for a headache, not so much for contractions. So I was kind of surprised that the offer was really just Tylenol, because it really does not, it's just not strong enough to help with contractions. And then the third thing she said is that, she hadn't heard of anybody who dilated that fast. And actually, it's not as uncommon as people might think. You don't necessarily hear lots of stories about it, but that can happen. No, maybe it's not typical, but it can certainly happen that birth can go pretty fast. Sometimes even doctors don't pay attention when women say, hey, I feel like something has changed, because it really, really can. So those are those few things about labor. That's the number one Dr. Nicole's notes. Now, number 2 is, it is great to accept help, but I want you to be comfortable, or don't be afraid to set some boundaries around that help. So what I mean by that is, it is okay to tell people like, hey, I'm not accepting visitors now, or you can come this day, or you can come that day, or here are the things that you can do or you can't do. You don't just have to say, oh yes, sure to everything. It is okay to set boundaries around the help that you receive. You don't just have to accept whatever comes your way. Okay. You can set up or ask for help or set boundaries in a nice way, of course, but in a way that works best for you. And then the third Dr. Nicole's note is that I'm going to disagree a bit with Sydney about not being able to be prepared. Being prepared is possible. No, you can't. You can't know every single thing that's potentially going to happen about birth, but you can have some general ideas that can help you feel better and know about the possible things that can happen, even if you don't understand all of the exact details. Now, of course, one of the ways to be prepared about birth is with great childbirth education. That's what you get inside the birth preparation course, my signature online childbirth education class that will get you calm, confident, and empowered to have the beautiful birth, especially in the hospital. I know some folks want in-person childbirth education. That's totally fine. But if you are someone who wants online childbirth education, you can do it when it's convenient for you. Do it with your partner. And it is also phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal, if I do say so myself. Then check out the birth preparation course at drnicolerankins.com/enroll. And if you DM me on Instagram and ask me for a discount code, I'm on Instagram at Dr. Nicole Rankins. I'll give you a little code, get a little something off the course. And also you can be prepared for your postpartum recovery by getting the postpartum recovery products from this week's episode sponsor, Lancino. When I was a breastfeeding mama back in the day, I used their breastfeeding products. Absolutely loved them. So it's a delight to work with Lancino now and talk about their amazing postpartum recovery line. The birth prep and recovery postpartum care line, again, has some amazing products. That upside down postpartum wash bottle is going to come in handy. Those hot and cold therapy packs you can use both vaginally. You can use the cold for on top of your C-section incision if you happen to have a C-section. There's a soothing herbal spray. There's a numbing spray. So lots of great products. And again, I put my hands on all of them. They're all fantastic, and I'm so excited to share them with you today. So you can head to lansino.com/AAPB to learn more about all of the products in the birth prep and recovery line. That is lansino.com/AAPB. All right, so there you have it. Please do me a favor. If you like this podcast, share it with a friend. Screenshot it, send it to a friend. So if you like it, sharing is caring. Also subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcast or wherever you're listening to me right now, and leave that review in Apple Podcast in particular. It helps the show to grow, and I love hearing what you have to say about the show. And from time to time, I do shout outs in the podcast episode from those reviews. So go ahead and head on over to Apple Podcast and leave me a review. I would so appreciate it. Also, check out the birth preparation course. Again, you can get calm, confident, and empowered for your birth, all from the comfort of your own home. Do it when it's convenient for you. Check out all the details at drnicolerankins.com/enroll and DM me on Instagram at drnicolerankins. I'll give you that little discount code. All right, so that is it for this episode. Do come on back next week, and remember that you deserve a beautiful pregnancy and birth.